disappoint me.
That was okay. It was good, but I don't imagine I'll become that obsessed with... Okay, yeah, I like Epic the Musical. Actually, no. I adore Epic the Musical. I've been following it since Jorge was posting clips of it online back in 2020. And with the release of the most recent saga, the entire musical has finally come out. And in celebration of Odysseus finally returning to Ithaca, I have decided to rank each of the individual sagas from worst to best. Just a couple disclaimers right here at the top before I get started. I will have to say some negative things about Epic the Musical.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It's a ranking, someone's gotta be at the bottom, and I know that the fans don't really like that sometimes, but trust me, I'm one of you. I like Epic the Musical, and I don't really hate any of the sagas. Even the one at the bottom I still think is good, even if it isn't as good as the other ones. This is also going to be a very opinionated video, and a ranking that is very tailored to my opinions. I'll include a little bit of analysis here and there, but not much. I also have technically speaking, not actually read the Odyssey, so accuracy will play absolutely no role in this ranking. I'm not a classicist, I don't write my own music, this is really just for silly fun times, because I thought it would be fun. So yeah, if your favorite saga is too low, or you think I have stupid opinions, then, go make your own ranking. I'm serious, go make your own ranking, do it yourself. I'd love to know what you think, and what your thoughts are. Anyways, let's get started.
Wow, she's so dead, isn't she?
Odysseus.
Just put this kid's name in the fucking death note. I will be astounded if this kid survives this episode, let alone the season. Wow, I cannot believe how dead this
Polites
is.
Oh, what a surprise. The Cyclops saga is at the bottom. I bet no one expected this. Yeah, it's kind of well known at this point that the early sagas are not quite up to the same level of quality as the rest of the show. That doesn't mean there's nothing to love here. The nobody motif is one of my favorites in the whole show.
My name is Nobody, Nobody, Nobody.
I quite enjoy the end of Remember Them, and I absolutely am obsessed with the interpretation of the Cyclops' voice. It gives him this very deep melodic tone that is both very pleasant to listen to, as well as being quite monstrous and intimidating, especially during Survive. And while Survive is not my favorite action sequence, it also isn't my least favorite. The constant banging drums throughout the first half give a sense of urgency, while Odysseus screams the lyrics instructing his soldiers to do what's best, and it helps the stakes to feel properly raised. And after the club is revealed, we suddenly get a sense of how impossible of a challenge this is, the drums being replaced with constant pounding club, and almost all other music having been cut out, while a string slowly comes back in. It's quite a good action song that truly makes one of the darker moments of the show feel darker. And I've been talking pretty positively about this saga so far, so why is this one at the bottom? Well, a musical, especially one this heavy, has to reach a delicate balance between making a good story and making a good song, and this saga doesn't really do either of those things as well as the rest of the musical. Story-wise, there are some big moments in this, obviously Polites' death, but not that much happens in this chapter. The only important events are them blinding the Cyclops, Polites dying, and Athena leaving. Look at something like the Thunder Saga, for example. It has them facing sirens, a betrayal, Scylla, a mutiny, Zeus, and the rest of Odie's crew dying, all in the same saga. The Cyclops Saga just feels very still and small in comparison. On top of there not being that much plot stuff, there also aren't any big character moments or moments that really showcase the theme. If there were, I would be willing to forgive the fact that this chapter is so enclosed to one villain and one fight. As for song, well, you may have noticed, other than Survive, I haven't really talked about any of the songs individually. This saga is one that feels the most interconnected. It makes the songs kind of hard to listen to casually because you feel like you need the rest of the saga to finish it. The only one that doesn't have this problem is My Goodbye, which honestly is the only song in the entire musical that if someone said it should be cut, I probably wouldn't be mad about it. All the information we get out of My Goodbye feels like it could have been just added to one of the other songs. It doesn't really feel like it does that much. And since the other songs are so interconnected by comparison, it results in My Goodbye just feeling a little tacked on. Comparing it to the other Athena songs as well, it's kind of boring. Again, not the worst, but definitely not the best either, which is especially sad because it's the finale of the Cyclops Saga. As a result of all of this, I don't actually find myself listening to any of the songs in the Cyclops Saga very much, but like I said, even the one at the bottom still has pieces I like. There's always at least one song that I enjoy and regularly listen to. In fact, I have decided that for every saga, I'm going to choose one song in it to give a little special award. A standout, since it's my favorite of that saga. And for the Cyclops Saga, that's definitely going to go to Remember Them. It is the only song I listen to regularly, and I absolutely love its ending. The way Odysseus introduces himself just says so much about him, and it feels like such a statement, especially since it kind of establishes Odysseus as the opposite of the way the world is going to force him to be.
Hey, Cyclops! When we met, I led with peace, while you fed your inner beast.
2 hours later.
Let's have open arms instead.
And musically, it freaking slaps. I particularly love the I am neither man nor mythical. It's such a powerful ending, which is also why it's crazy that it's not the end of the Cyclops Saga, and there's another song that's a worse end to the Cyclops Saga after it.
I need to talk to you in private.
Finally, we're getting to different opinions. Opinions that some might not have. Guys, I dislike the Ocean Saga! I really dislike the Ocean Saga so much. And I think that might actually be a surprise for some people. I don't really hear people talk about the Ocean Saga that much, but I also don't really hear people hate on it like the first two sagas. But I do not like this saga. I don't really hate any of the sagas. Okay, yes, I recognize that me saying I dislike the Ocean Saga makes me a hypocrite. And I am partially saying this for the sake of hyperbole. There are still some things I like about the Ocean Saga. For example, I feel as though my thoughts on Keep Your Friends Close have changed entirely since the saga's release. When the saga first came out, I thought that it wasn't really my kind of song. The beat was pretty simple, and while it was catchy, it was annoyingly so. But goddammit, the catchy beat got me. It got me, okay? The song is fun! It's a bop, it's a good time, I have fun! Kira Stone's performance as Aeolus fits the part perfectly. She has this very fun and light voice that carries Aeolus's silly, mischievous nature.
Ha ha ha, I am the wind, twisting and turning.
And the little Winions are so adorable with adorable voices. And although I haven't talked about Storm yet, spoiler alert, Storm works better in this song than it does in Storm.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
This song also carries most of the actual plot of the saga, that being the Windbag and Aeolus' test. And the Windbag is so, whimsical and magically silly, while also making for an interesting conflict in the song. Although, like the Cyclops Saga, the Ocean Saga doesn't have that much actually happening in it, I prefer the story within the Ocean Saga, and most of that comes from this song. However, while I do still like it now, it isn't quite as much of a bop as other bops to come, nor is it as story-heavy, thematically heavy, or character-heavy as later songs. Thus, it's not really enough to carry the rest of the Ocean Saga for me. Speaking of, Storm is without a doubt the most boring action song in the entire musical. And I don't think that's a super unpopular opinion. It just has so little impact on anything. Like I said, Survive is not my favorite, but at least it carries this level of darkness to it. And it has importance with Polites' death. But Storm doesn't make me feel anything. It doesn't connect to anything thematically, it doesn't even involve fighting a person or a monster, rather fighting nature. It just really exists to establish things and nothing else. And musically, it's also not the most catchy. Some of the lines are a little awkward.
Captain, we will capsize with these waves, our fleet will fail.
But at the same time, it's also kind of hard to pay attention to any of the other actual lines when you just hear STORM 1,000,001 times over and over. And over and over and over again. But to be a little bit fair to Storm, it is nice to hear Poseidon's trumpet before he actually appears, especially since the crew is asking questions about the storm, like, is it nature or divine? And the music gives us the answer before the story does.
The likes of which we've never seen before.
That is cool. That's a cool little musical detail. I also think the end of the song is pretty cool, where Odie sings, "We're shooting for the island in the sky." That's the only time I felt something in the entire song. Good job. So, even though I do still think it's the worst action song in the musical, I will give some credit to Storm, that it does do some cool things. But the song I will absolutely not be giving any credit to, or be fair to at all, not even giving the slightest compliment, is the song that I consider to be the worst. Not the worst action song, or the worst villain song, or the worst Odysseus or Athena song, no. The worst, period, in the entire musical. I know that earlier I said My Goodbye is the only song I wouldn't be mad if someone cut, and I still stand by that because You Really Kiss really does need his own song, and Luck Runs Out is used as several different motifs throughout the musical, making it unfortunately too important to cut. But God, I hate this song. And I do actually mean it this time. This is the only song that I actively hate. You'll notice it's the only song I'm not playing under my recording, and that's because I don't want to have to listen to it while I edit. Editing is already such a pain in the ass. You don't understand. And I wish I could actually explain in specific detail why I have such a visceral dislike of this song, but I just hate it. I just do. I'll try. I think the lyrics are awkward, and at times I would go so far as to say they are clunky.
You could be caught off guard and lose your life, or piss off this god and infuse us with strife.
At this point, I would much rather they just have a conversation than sing a conversation, and instrumentation-wise, it's boring and flat, with this bass just being thrown everywhere randomly to the point of annoyance. And I think that it doesn't help that I'm not really a fan of slower songs, or songs that don't have a lot of energy to them. I need energy to the music I'm listening to. If it doesn't make me feel like I'm actively having a heart attack or being attacked, I don't want it. Which may sound weird because I've said I like epic several times, and this musical does contain quite a few slower songs or ballads. While it's true, most of the other slower songs are able to supplement that lack of energy by having really big emotions. And I'll get into that more in a bit. But this is slow and flat and repetitive and has no big emotion, and no big event happens in it. Almost nothing happens in it. I'm so bored. Where did all the fun go? I hate this song! So, there it is for you. The Ocean Saga is one of the shortest in the musical at only 3 songs, and unfortunately, only one of those songs is okay, while the other 2 are some of the worst in the entire musical. Thus explains why I've put it so low on the wait, what do you mean there's 4 songs? Oh my god!
My years of living, it isn't very often that I get pissed off.
Listen, I really struggled with which one of these to put on the bottom. And I am being so serious when I say the only reason the Ocean Saga gets to be number 2 is because Ruthlessness is just that good. Ruthlessness is the one kid who actually did the work in the group project, and he did such a good job, he brought you up an entire letter grade. You still failed because the rest of you did so poorly, but good job, Ruthlessness! It's just so amazing. It perfectly sets up the themes of the entire show, Poseidon's character and the conflict he has with Odie, not to mention the motifs it carries throughout the entire rest of the musical. It truly is what Epic is about. In my opinion, Ruthlessness, Just a Man, and Monster set the backbone for what the themes of the show are, and none of that is even mentioning the actual music itself. You remember how I said I love it when a song makes me feel like I'm being attacked? Yeah, this is what I meant by that. The music really attacks you. Poseidon comes in and truly establishes himself as a threat with an incredible performance by Steven Rodriguez, and the instrumentation to back it up. It just feels so big and, for lack of a better word, epic. And the lyrics are so intense while also being incredibly clever. However, even though the song is amazing, it's not my favorite villain song in the musical. We'll get to that one later. And that's mostly because the song does get a few points knocked off for its ending. Listen, I get that it's important for the story, but if I'm listening to Ruthlessness and I'm in super evil villain mode, I don't want to hear, all I gotta do is open this bag. No! I want to listen to Ruthlessness!
Oh, please, give me that baby and I'd eat it off a tower.
Now, there may be some people who are surprised to see the Troy Saga this high. Like I said, the first 2 sagas are not exactly considered as high quality as the rest of the show, and I feel like the Troy Saga especially receives a lot of negative attention, which, although I don't agree with, I do understand. Musically, the Troy Saga is not nearly as interesting as the rest of the show. Both the instrumentation and lyrics are stronger in other sagas. Admittedly, I myself don't really listen to the songs from here as much as the other sagas. I also find that the placement of songs within the saga to be a little strange. When you listen to Full Speed Ahead, it sounds like it should be the opening number. It introduces the goal of the show, to cross the ocean and get home to Ithaca. It introduces the initial problem that leads to everything else, the lack of food. It introduces the main characters, Odysseus, Eurylochus, and, for their current point in time, Polites, and even directly gives us some of Odysseus, our main character's, motivations. Yet despite that, it's actually the 3rd song of the saga. On top of that, while Warrior of the Mind is really good, it also just kinda comes out of nowhere. Like, we're going on this journey and we're exploring this island and doing this thing, but hold on! Wait! We gotta have a flashback right now in the middle of everything! Let's do a flashback! I think all of those reasons are why I can't bring myself to put it any higher than 3rd, but I also can't find myself totally hating on it. When it first came out, it was the only saga that existed, and I think that made it kind of disappointing to people, but when you take it into the context of the rest of the show, it really thematically sets up the base for every other saga. Let's look again at Full Speed Ahead, for example. Surely there's some way we can take all of those other things I said earlier and mash them into all the other songs. We don't need Full Speed Ahead. We could cut Full Speed Ahead. Full Speed Ahead definitely doesn't also create a bunch of musical motifs that are used at least once in almost every saga.
Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead. Until we find the prophet. Full speed ahead. 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 Faster. Full speed ahead. Faster. Full speed ahead. Captain, you really cuss. Captain, you really cuss. And did the cuz waiting? My kingdom is waiting. The enemy's waiting for me. So full speed ahead.
Look at all this food. Look at all these sheep. I can't believe this cave has all this for us to keep.
Cause I'm stuck with your stories, but no clue who you are. And no idea if you're dead or just too far. Somebody tell me, come and give me a sign. If I fight those monsters, is it you I'll find? For every comrade, every one of my friends, almost all of whom were slaughtered by your hand. 600 men, 600 men under my command, with only one goal in mind.
Make it back alive to our homeland.
600 men, 600 deaths under my command, cause I had one goal in mind.
600.
Oh! And you can do that sort of thing with all of the songs in this saga. Open Arms is used as a constant gut punch over and over again, taunting Odysseus wherever he goes. Not to mention, it being the opposite of ruthlessness sets up these two combating ideas. Warrior of the Mind has the Show Yourself segment, which bookends the entire show, and also sets up Athena's theme that's used in every other Athena song. Even Horse and the Infant sets up the Penelope motif, and it also contains a line that on its own pretty much sums up the entire show thematically in one sentence.
The blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is whose.
Like, that's it. That is the theme. Do you choose ruthlessness or do you choose open arms? And is there ever truly a way that no one gets hurt? All of that summed up in one beautiful sentence. And none of the stuff I just said is even mentioning the standout song for this saga, which you can probably guess by now is Just a Man. Now look, I know when I was just hating on Luck Runs Out, I was saying how I don't like slower songs or ballads, and it's true, I'm generally not a fan. However, there are always exceptions to this, and Just a Man is one of them. It may not be the most energetic song, it is intended to sound like a lullaby, but it supplements that with the way it builds upon itself, starting as that calm, quiet lullaby just being between Odie and the baby, but ending in this powerful piece of music, the ensemble of soldiers joining in, singing some of the most beautiful lyrics I've ever heard, including a question that is somehow even more thematic than the line from The Horse and the Infant. All of this while Odysseus screams, begging for the infant, for the world to forgive him for this heinous crime, as there's nothing else he can do. There's no other way out. There's no trick or plot or plan he can do. His wits are entirely useless. He can't change this one. There's only one solution. He's not a god. and he cannot change their will. He is just a man. I still don't find myself actually listening to Just a Man very often, as it is still a ballad. But when this saga was first released, this was the very song that made me realize, oh yeah, this musical is gonna be something special. It's just so beautiful and heartbreaking. And like I said earlier, I consider it to be one of the 3 songs that make up the backbone of this musical, repeating its lyrics and motifs throughout the rest of the show, as well as working to hold up the theme. And that's why it's so special and important to me. And I think that sums up the Troy saga as a whole as well. It may not be as strong as the other sagas, it may not have as much plot in it, but its importance to the characters and themes makes me put it up this high.
I don't know if Scylla's a cannibal, is she more man or animal? And at some point are we just splitting hairs? Cause cannibalism refers to an act where humans break a social contract, and I don't think they have those inside of monster lairs.
The Thunder Saga is the one I find to be the most average out of all of them. It is still amazing on its own, just in comparison to the rest, it fits in the most average. Like I said earlier, story-wise, a lot of interesting stuff happens in this saga. This is right after Monster, which means that this is Odysseus doing some of his worst acts. He sacrifices the Sirens, despite them begging for mercy, because he's afraid of a repeat of the Cyclops situation. Ironic that this very same act will bite him later on. And despite the fact that just a song ago he stated, "If I were the monster to everyone but us," he turns his monstrous ways on the crew, sacrificing 6 men to Scylla, and eventually allowing Zeus to kill his whole crew rather than himself. All of this makes for a deeply interesting story, and only goes to add to the themes of the rest of the show. It's one of the parts that, not considering the music, only just considering the plot, is the most interesting to me, and has the most that happens. My problem with this arc lies in the music itself, and to be clear, it is not bad. It is good, quite good actually. I listen regularly to a lot of the songs from this. I think Scylla and Mutiny show my problem with it the best. Both of them tell important parts of the story, but because they are doing that and having these large action moments, it kind of drags down the actual song itself. For me. I know a lot of people like Scylla and might even get mad at me for saying that. Don't get me wrong, Scylla is an absolutely beautiful piece. Jorge was able to create this intense and haunting theme with what I believe are strings, but I'm not certain. KJ Burkhauser's performance only adds to the haunting nature. She does quite a good job at playing this beautiful but monstrous creature, especially when she's harmonizing with herself. I really love the effects that Jorge has done to create these monster voices, both with the Cyclops and Scylla. And the climax of this song is very good, very, very intense. And I love how her beautiful head voice has turned into this rasp belt.
Leaving them feeling betrayed. Hiding your sorrow and fears.
I also love the way that Odysseus and her harmonize at the end, symbolizing the monster he's become. However, the first part of the song is just not that interesting to me, and the middle section is taken up just by Scylla killing the men, no singing. Nothing really happens in that part. I love the theme he created, but I don't super want to listen to over and over again. Despite loving musical theater, I'm someone who has never been a big fan of dance breaks in musical numbers. Obviously, this is not a dance break. That would be really funny, but it functions the same as one. It's an interlude between the singing sections to allow some big piece of action, and I am just personally not a fan. To me, the song doesn't really get that interesting or that good until the very end. However, I consider my problems with Scylla to be pretty small, and overall the piece is really good. The problems get even worse in Mutiny. Oh, Mutiny. Mutiny is almost 5 minutes long, and so much of it is just fighting, plot, fighting, rowing, stuff happening. Genuine question. Does anybody actually listen to Mutiny as just music? Outside of the rest of the context of the saga and the rest of the context of the musical, does anybody actually listen to just Mutiny as just like a song? If you played this for someone who had never listened to the musical before, could they get behind it as just a song? Because I don't think so. I never listen to Mutiny on its own. I know I've said a couple times now, I don't listen to this as much as the other sagas, but you have to understand, when I say that, I'm comparing it to how much I listen to the rest of the sagas, which is a lot. Like, a lot. I still listen to Just a Man. I still listen to the Cyclops saga. Remember Me was on my Wrapped this year, and I've kind of slowly been coming around to Prometheus. I never listened to Mutiny. I know most of the words in the Cyclops saga and all the words in the Troy saga, but I don't know any of the words to Mutiny because I never listened to it. And yes, perhaps it doesn't help that part of the song is Luck Runs Out. Eurylochus make good music challenge impossible! And just to be super extra clear, which this might take me off on a bit of a tangent here, my issues from this come from the music itself, and not from what Eurylochus does in this number. This is definitely going to be a tangent. Hashtag Eurylochus did nothing wrong in Mutiny. Look, I get it. He already pissed people off with the fucking windbag, and I agree, he should not have opened the windbag, that was stupid. However, I don't necessarily think he was in the wrong for killing the cows. Yes, that action got the crew killed, and yes, Odie did state ahead of time it would get the crew killed. However, I would like to remind you that by this point, Eurylochus is starving and has been barely surviving for years. Starvation is one of the most painful things a person can go through, and they've been on the verge of dying from starvation for a long time now. Starvation also fucks with your head and severely affects your decision making. It doesn't matter if Odysseus uses logic and warns him ahead of time. It doesn't matter that he was right. Eurylochus was incredibly desperate, and that desperation would have been his main focus. So yeah, I don't necessarily blame him for killing the cows. I just think the song kinda sucks. Anyways, back to music stuff. I feel like Suffering and Different Beast are the opposite for me. They do a very, very good job of balancing story and song, especially for the first time that you listen to the saga. If you don't know what's happening, you really just, what? Penelope in the middle of the ocean? What? And while Suffering is definitely not my favorite song, I do love just how fun it is. Both inside and outside of context, it's really fun to be like, hee hee hoo hoo, Odysseus is so smart, and then do a little dance while he complains about how shy he is. And of the two, the real standout is Different Beast. I love Different Beast. Again, this is the first time he has shown his true colors after Monster, and you can immediately feel the change. The music is much more intense, which both works for the story and creates a better song. And I know some people may prefer Scylla to Different Beast, which is an opinion I won't really argue with, as they're both good in their own right. I just personally prefer Different Beast, as it never really slows down or stops, whereas Scylla is much more of a build. And Different Beast just hits me a little more, and I think that's because Odysseus sings more in it. Obviously, him and Scylla have the harmony at the end, which is thematic, but that just doesn't really compare to the way my blood just runs cold when he says, "Let them drown." Just the difference between this song and every other previous Odysseus song is so stark, and I enjoy it so much. And finally, there is Thunderbringer, which is also not my favorite villain song. Sorry, Zeus, you don't get to wear the crown either, and Poseidon is also better than you. He gets 2 villain songs, and both of them are better than this one. Which again, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I know I keep saying that, but I fear people won't hear me. I do like this song. I really like the instrumentation. The use of thunder cracks, the instruments that all go and the chorus in the back going, whoa! Again, so I don't get the laugh right after that. And the chorus in the back going, whoa! Blended all together makes for a very excellent track to listen to. I just feel like the lyrics of this one are especially awkward. The tune he sings in has a tendency to wander, and it's hard to tell exactly where it's going, and that causes the longer sentences to feel squished.
Enlighten me, king of Ithaca, since hunger was far too great. I wonder who'd take the weight of the damned and suffer a gruesome fate to the thunder.
That's not to say all the lyrics are bad. I actually feel like a lot of them are really clever.
Pride is a damsel in distress, hiding away where only I can trial she cannot to confess. In the end, it's all the same once I apply all the pressure.
I just wish this one had like one more draft to try and make it all fit together better in the end. So those are my thoughts on the Thunder Saga. It has parts I absolutely love, but it does also have some flaws in my opinion. And there are songs in other sagas I just think are better.
Haven't you noticed who's missing? Don't you know the prince is not around? I heard today is Telemachus' birth.
Alright, yep. Here we go. This is another one that might make people angry, because there's a lot of love for this saga right now. And I'm right there with you. I love this saga so much. It is so good. It is also the newest saga that has been released, so it is going to have that recency bias. But there is just so much to love about this saga. For starters, it includes my favorite villain song. That's right, it doesn't go to Poseidon or Zeus, the two gods. The crown for best villain song goes to this fucker. Why did I say it like that? Crown for best villain song goes to this fucker. But can you blame me? Antonius is vile. And not just that, he's so grounded and realistic. He's not a god, he's a man who just wants to take advantage of a power vacuum to get what he wants, only because he feels he deserves it. Hold Him Down is genuinely terrifying, because Antonius is real, and a real threat to Penelope and Telemachus. He carries so much intimidation with him, and you really get the sense that this plan is something that he could totally carry out. On top of that, it is also just, a good song. It doesn't have any of the problems of awkward lyrics or the tune not allowing the lyrics to shine or any other songs just randomly being tacked on to the end of it. Nope. It's just a good song. It might even hold up as one of the best villain songs, period, outside of this musical as well. On top of that, this saga also has my favorite action song, Odysseus. This is everything I love about Different Beast times 10. Odysseus just mercilessly slaughtering all the suitors. And I particularly love when he is presented with this same idea of open arms once again, and this time entirely rejects it.
Let's have open arms instead.
This song is sort of like the opposite of Just a Man. Just a Man exists to set up all of the themes and ideas that are going to be explored throughout the musical, and Odysseus is when those same ideas come full circle. Which is something you could say about pretty much every song in this saga. I mean, this saga perfectly bookends the show. But I say that about Odysseus because he's abandoned everything that made him Odysseus at the start. Obviously, that change happens in the Vengeance Saga, but we see the real consequences of it here. Odysseus taking on traits of the very same monsters he had fought before in the music, and finally fulfilling the prophecy that he was told, is so good. So if this song contains my favorite villain song and my favorite action song, why is it not even closer to the top? Well, you might already know what I'm going to say. It's the slower songs! It's the slower songs! I'm so sorry. Listen. I do like these songs. They do the exact same thing as Just a Man by having very, very big emotions. The challenge is so important and vital to the rest of the musical. You can just feel the pain Penelope has been feeling for the past 20 years, and the way that she has grown tired of her situation and refuses to bow down with it. And oh, Would You Fall in Love with Me is so good, such a gorgeous song. There's just so much love between them. They just love each other so much. And the motifs they carry in that song, the way their emotions are shown, and the way the instrumentation is done to show their emotions in that number is so beautiful. The way they love each other so much, it makes me cry every time. And you better believe, I eat up every single edit I get with that song. Or at least I did. Oh, it's so good. And although they are good, there are 3 out of 5 songs in this saga I would consider to be slower, and 2 out of 5 I would consider to be ballads, and it's just too much for me, especially because I can't help but wonder, is kind of boring. Not as boring as certain other songs I know. Seeing Telemachus and Odysseus reunite is really nice and also makes me cry. But it's really just a personal taste thing. Maybe if I sit with it for a while, I will come back around to it. That does tend to happen with me and has happened with quite a bit of songs in this musical, but yeah, even though I think this saga is amazing and really, really good, I just think the other sagas are a little bit better and a little bit more suited to my taste. That's all. See, now we're getting to the point that this is more difficult for me. The further along we get in this ranking, the harder it becomes for me to decide what songs go where, because I love all of the ones we have left way too much. All of them include some of my favorite tracks in the entire show, so it's really hard for me to decide what goes where. And that includes the Wisdom Saga. I love the Wisdom Saga. I love almost every song in the Wisdom Saga. And yes, I did say almost every song. There is one I don't like. If you've been paying attention, you can probably guess which one. Yeah, I don't like We'll Be Fine. Wow, what a surprise! Whoa! I don't think I need to explain why I don't like this song. I think you get the point by now. But even in terms of slower music in the show, this is just not up there for me. Songs like Just a Man and Wouldn't You Fall in Love are much higher as they carry bigger moments than We'll Be Fine. But We'll Be Fine is the only song I actively dislike in this saga, as well as the only slower song in this saga. And as such, it gets to be higher than both the Troy and Ithaca sagas, especially considering just how much I love the other tracks in this saga. The only other one I would say is not quite as good as the others is Little Wolf. And don't get me wrong, I love Little Wolf. I do not dislike Little Wolf. Athena's part in Little Wolf is so good. I just, I don't have as much to say about it as the other tracks. It's good. It's good. That's all I have to say. There's not really that much, interesting to say about it. And that's just because the other tracks are so good. I also just love Telemachus. He's one of my favorite characters. I love any sort of sweet, naive boy. I love the way he is exactly like his father at the start of this journey, and it's perfectly shown through the fact that Legendary has the exact same tune as Full Speed Ahead. Boom. Genius. Immediately connects the two of them together, shows how they have similar ideology, and shows how Telemachus is about to go on a great journey. It's also ironic considering that Telemachus doesn't know what his father is or even looks like when he can figure it out if he just looks in a mirror. Plus this song is a bop. Look, listen, I didn't like it at first, because I thought Telemachus was cringy, and the tune was annoying, but goddammit, the catchy hook got me. And you know what? It got me even worse than Keep Your Friends Close. I listened to this song on repeat way too much. Way too much. I listen to Legendary on repeat because it is so good and catchy and fun. And Little Wolf and We'll Be Fine, although not my favorites, are made all the better simply because Telemachus is there. Love in Paradise is also amazing. I have little to no complaints about Love in Paradise. The only thing I could say is I wish he used the instrumentation version of the time jump. The version we got is still really, really good, and I'm not mad about it. I just think mashing the lyrics up together doesn't blend as well as just playing the tracks. But again, don't hate it. The time jump is really cool and does sound really good even with the lyrics. I just prefer the instrumentation. Everything else about this song is great as well. I love how unsettling the second chorus is, despite being,
Under my spell, we're stuck in paradise. No one can come.
Just the way she goes on to describe how stuck he is really helps settle the terror of being trapped at this woman's mercy. And the second half on the cliff is very upsetting. It does a good job of giving you that emotional gut punch. And finally, there's the standout song. Surprising probably no one, it's God Games. God Games is one of the best tracks in the entire show. It's not my overall favorite, but if you told me it was your favorite, I would say you have good taste, because it's really good. It's exciting, it's tense, you want Athena to win. It's really cool to see the goddess of knowledge debate all these other people. It has a lot going on with action, but manages to keep it all together seamlessly. Similarly, I love the way that each god's section is kind of their own song, which should be too much going on, but Jorge manages to keep it all together and still sounding like one song. Every god's performance is top-notch, to the point where I would say, once again, Thunderbringer works better in God games than it does in Thunderbringer. Overall, it's just a really good song. They're all really good songs. I think the reason I decided to put the Wisdom Saga here is because even though the songs are really good and some of my favorites, the story isn't exactly my favorite part. I do love Telemachus, like I said, and I think the show needed more of him and Penelope, but where they are placed just feels very random. I kind of wish we had more of them sprinkled throughout the show rather than, oh, by the way, here's Telemachus. You won't see him again until the finale, I just wanted to mention that he's here. I think also Athena's change comes out of nowhere. I do love the way that even though Odysseus becomes more monstrous, the people around him start to accept open arms more, like Athena. And having Athena show that growth by working with Telemachus and not repeating the same mistakes she did before is really clever and really good. It's just that I feel like I'm seeing the beginning and end of an arc without seeing any of the middle. What we have is good. It's great that she's changed, and it's really interesting to see, but why has she changed? She hasn't been watching Odysseus, we know that because she doesn't do that until here. What is the catalyst that made her change throughout these years? How is it that she went from this to this? Did she just wake up one day and decide, hey, you know what, I think Odie might have been right the whole time? On top of that, while Calypso's island is very interesting, and Calypso as a character is also very interesting, it's cut far too short. 7 years is packed into one song, and we barely see any of those actual 7 years. And even God Games, it's a very cool idea and really, really adds to the story. One of the best action moments in the whole story. But like, everyone kind of agrees their arguments kind of suck and can have a lot of holes poked into them. So yeah, even though I really love the music of this part, the story isn't quite as good. And to be fair, most of that I think is caused by the fact that all of this is just packed into one saga rather than being sown throughout. I think if we had seen more of Telemachus and Penelope and Calypso and Athena throughout the whole show, maybe not Calypso throughout the whole show, but you know what I mean. If we had seen more of them throughout the whole show, I would have less of a problem with the Wisdom Saga the way it is now.
And then I said,
next to my wife.
get it? I responded to a rhetorical question with a literal answer.
And this ranking only continues to get harder as we go along. The more I sit and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, maybe I was too harsh on the Ithaca saga, or maybe I should give Luck Runs Out another chance, or maybe not because I still hate it and it's boring. But then I listen to the Vengeance Saga and I'm reminded of just how good it is. Plot-wise, it's some of my favorite moments in the whole show. And not necessarily because they're very exciting, although they are. More importantly, it's because they help support Odie's character in such a great way. Almost every song in this just adds to his personality so much. He chooses to leave paradise for his family, he refuses to give up for his family, and despite everything, he still tries to get Poseidon to forgive, and well, we'll get to that last one. I think this last fight before he reaches Ithaca just goes to show so much of Odie's character, as well as how much he has changed, which to me is more important than actual plot itself, and is going to be more interesting than just an action scene. Not to mention how every song on here is a bop. I'm Not Sorry for Loving You improves on the already amazing Love in Paradise, and the manipulation in this song is crazy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, Calypso is an irredeemable villainess who's totally aware of her evil intentions. No. That's not the point. I honestly don't think she intends to hurt Odysseus. She clearly does care for him. The end of Love in Paradise proves that. Although she doesn't understand what he needs, she does love him. I don't even think she is totally aware of the manipulation that she's doing because she doesn't know how to interact or understand people. I think she is just desperately trying whatever she can to keep him there because, well, he's all she's ever known. And she doesn't want to lose that. However, at the end of the day, it is still manipulation, even if it isn't intended to be. Waiting until he's about to leave to tell him her tragic backstory so he'll feel sorry for her. Waiting until he's about to leave to apologize so he'll stay. Apologizing but not really taking any of the blame. And ooh! Oh, when she cuts him off!
Let me speak.
Like, girl! But anyways, I love the way Jorge has been able to balance showing her pain and how she is clearly hurting, while also showing the ways she is attempting to control him, all over a catchy beat. And like I said, the decision for Odysseus to leave just says so much about him and his character, and makes him so interesting. And then you have Dangerous, which I'm actually going to skip for now, because I want to talk about it together with another song. Just for now. No, it's good. Like it. Moving on. Straight to Charbirlis.
Charybdis.
Yeah, that. Which is the only song in the musical that I cannot pronounce the name of. But despite that, I like it quite a bit. Odysseus has quite a few songs in the musical that define him and who he is. Just a Man, that one section of Full Speed Ahead, that one section of Remember Them, Monster, Different Beast, Odysseus. Which makes sense. He is the protagonist, and the entire point of the Odyssey is to watch him change. It would be weird if we didn't check in on the ways that he is changing. But out of all of the songs, the one that defines him the most, to me, is probably Just a Man. But next to that one, I would say it's Charybdis. Yes. Because this song includes things that stay consistent from the beginning to the end of the musical. Odysseus is incredibly clever and uses his wits. Odysseus never gives up without a fight. Odysseus will do anything to return home to his family. Despite everything he goes through, none of those things ever change. In fact, you could argue at this point his determination to get home is even stronger because he's been through so much and is so close. You can really feel the determination in this music. It does everything in its power to hype you up and make you become as determined and empowered as Odie in this moment. I would also argue this is one of Jorge's best performances because you can just hear Odysseus having a massive smirk on his face as he screams to the whirlpool, "I know how to beat you!" So yeah. I don't know if this is a super unpopular opinion, but I feel like this song isn't as discussed as much, but it should be, because I think it's one of the best Odysseus songs. And right after that, you have Get in the Water, which is equally as amazing, if not more so. Don't get me wrong, Ruthlessness is good, but this is somehow even better. It's so dark, and the music in this section is freaking beautiful, despite being so dark, and the lyrics are incredible, giving you a chilling experience.
Get in the water. Get in the water. I think your son and gouge his eyes. That is unless you choose to die. Get in the water.
The inclusion of the Cyclops' voice was also genius. I will say it's not perfect, it can be a little repetitive, it's wildly short considering. I wish it was longer. And it has the exact same problem as Ruthlessness, that being it ends with a piece that doesn't really mesh with Get in the Water at all. I want to listen to Get in the Water, not Open Arms, and definitely not Luck Runs Out. Get this shit out of here! And this is the point where you might be wondering to yourself, this is only third, but she's talked about this saga so positively. Hence you see my conundrum of where to place each saga, but there is a reason I eventually landed on third place for the Vengeance Saga. If you ask me whether I think this saga or the saga I'm going to rank next is better, my answer might change on day to day. I think they're both very, very good, and both a very similar level of very, very good. Both of them deserve to be ranked high. However, there is 600 Strike. Okay, hear me out on this. Listen. 600 Strike is amazing. And is also garbage. It is simultaneously one of the best songs in the musical, as well as one of the worst songs in the musical. It might somehow be even worse than Luck Runs Out, if that's even possible. Let's get into the specifics. First of all, the windbag jetpack is stupid. Now, to be fair, I think this all depends upon the specific animatic you are watching. I've seen some pretty cool interpretations of the windbag jetpack, and I've also seen some... And I don't mean any offense to any specific artist. I'm not going to name any artists. If you make an animatic, you have more patience and skill and time than I, and you are so cool and amazing and awesome. But it does look like a fart. I'm sorry, it does. It looks like a fart. It looks like he's using a fart to fly. I can't unsee it. It's so stupid and it makes me cringe. And then there's the red eyes, which again, that's a visual thing. It depends upon the animatic, and it's depending upon the interpretation. It sometimes works really, really well and creates a cool effect. And sometimes it's there, and it's like, why? Shutting up about visual stuff now. And then Jorge starts singing. Except he's not singing. He's screaming.
'Cause I will get back to my son, and I will get back to my wife!
Oh my god. Oh my god, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. Why is this like this? Why are you like this, 600 Strike? Why are you saying wife like that? Why are you scream singing everything in such an unpleasant way? Why is the ensemble chanting 600 Strike over and over and over and over and over and over again? What is happening with the music? Why are we having an anime battle? What is happening? And he begins actually singing for real, but that is immediately cut off by the next cringiest thing, which is somehow the most cringiest thing in this entire cringe fest. 600 Strike! Why is he screaming 600 Strike? Like it's a fucking anime move! Why is he doing an anime move? Why are we making an anime reference? There is no reason? And listen, if anybody loves anime battles and stupid anime bullshit, it's me. I've been making my way through JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, for fuck's sake. And I'm having a great time with it. I'm totally here for fun. I'm here for stupid anime battle I just don't think it has a place in this musical. Tonally, everything that has happened in this number does not fit at all with everything else that has come before it. An anime battle just feels so out of place in a musical, especially in a musical based on a Greek classic. Why are we doing this? This was the point that I really truly hit rock bottom for this musical. I was there when the Vengeance Saga was released. I was in that live stream. I was sitting on my couch, cringing so hard that I was gonna implode and create a black hole of cringe. I was thinking to myself, this is the worst song I've ever heard, if you could even call it a song. There was nothing that was going to save this song. No possible way it was going to get better. And then it did. The musical has spent so long telling the audience in every which way that Odysseus is powerless against a god. He has faced and failed and died at so many different gods. Every part of his fate has always been out of control and in the hands of those who are above him. So when Poseidon says, "Or what? You can't kill me," the audience believes him. We know there's nothing Odysseus can do, because we've seen it. He's stuck. He's failed. And then you hear it. Hold on. Excuse me. Sorry. Is that the Different Beast theme? Watching this live, when he said,
Exactly.
I felt the whole world turn cold. This is a Different Beast and Odysseus times 1,000,000. This is the same feeling you get with Let Them Drown, but so much more. And then it just keeps going. You can feel Poseidon's pain with every single hit of the trident. You can feel Odysseus' pain in the way that he sings. You can tell he wants to cry in despair but is unable to. Poseidon's screams become melodic and almost beautiful because that's the way Odysseus hears them. Odysseus asking over and over again how Poseidon feels in the same position that he placed Odysseus in 10 years ago. Poseidon screaming, "Monster!" Odysseus asking, "Wasn't it you who refused to forgive over and over at any chance I gave you? Didn't you say that ruthlessness is
Mercy upon our... All right. Please. After everything you've done, how will you sleep at night?
Next to my wife.
I don't understand! I don't understand how a song can start so fucking terribly, actively be the worst thing I've ever heard, and then suddenly shift and become the greatest scene ever. I'm not joking when I say this. After this saga was released, I went and wrote a scene based on this scene. How can I possibly sit here and say that this shit is one of my favorite scenes in this whole musical? How is it could be so bad and yet also so good? I don't understand how that's possible. And this is what I struggle with the Vengeance Saga. Like I said, all the other songs up until now have been on pretty much equal footing with the next saga. They are neck and neck in terms of quality. But 600 Strike just makes it so confusing. The next saga never is able to reach the same highs that 600 Strike does, but also never falls to the same lows that 600 Strike does. So which one do I put above the other? Again, I think the answer for me varies, but because the next one never gets that same low point, I am going to let it be the victor between the two. Speaking of, I should probably reveal what that next saga is now. If you had told me half a year ago that I would put the Circe Saga this high on the ranking, I would have thought you were crazy. Don't get me wrong, I always liked the Circe Saga, but this high? But you know, the more I thought about it, when I compared it to every other saga, I always came to the conclusion that I liked it more. Weirdly enough, it has a lot of the same things as Cyclops Saga that I considered to be issues in that one. For example, some of the songs are better when listened to together. But unlike in the Cyclops Saga, where I felt like I couldn't really separate any of the songs at all and they were more like one big song, the Circe Saga, for the most part, can be separated, and the songs still work as songs. It's just that it's improved when listened to together. Another thing is that the story is very contained, just like in the Cyclops Saga, where they are only fighting one person instead of doing a whole lot of traveling and fighting a bunch of creatures. But unlike the Cyclops Saga, I find the Circe Saga to be a lot more interesting personally. Circe is probably my second favorite character in the musical, perhaps third. She might be tied with Odysseus. And yeah, Odysseus is not number one. I love her voice. I love the way she sings. I love the way she attacks through trickery and manipulation, like the poison food or using lust as an excuse. It makes her such a cool villain to watch on screen. And I especially love the way she parallels Odysseus. She basically is Odysseus from later on in the musical, and has almost the opposite arc from him. I mean, think about it. She treated the world with open arms and mercy, was attacked and had a great loss because of said attack, then became defensive. She feels forced to defend her people by simply attacking anyone who gets close, including Odie's men. She thinks about her nymphs in the same way that Odie eventually comes to think about his men. I'll become the monster to everyone but us, and in doing so, I will protect us. But whereas Odie just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, Circe manages to reverse this mentality by the end of the saga. And in this scene specifically, she kind of proves Poseidon wrong? She used Poseidon's mentality. She attacked with ruthlessness, despite not having any evidence that these men were bad or were here to attack. And because she used ruthlessness, Odie now has a reason to attack her and almost gets away with killing her. If she had just left Odie's men alone, it's entirely possible they would have just left, and she wouldn't have a sword at her throat. We don't know, because she doesn't choose that. But By the end of the Cersei saga, she does choose open arms instead, because Odie was vulnerable with her. And in doing so, Odie and Cersei stop fighting. This is like one of the only arcs with an actual happy ending, and the reason that happens is because both sides choose open arms and forgiveness. None of the nymphs need to die, and none of the soldiers need to die, rip Elpenor, because there is no reason to attack each other. And it's interesting that Odie just becomes worse while people who interacted with him, like Cersei and like Athena, change towards open arms. And even Poseidon is eventually definitively proven wrong. All of this is so freaking interesting to me. I love parallel characters, and parallel character arcs are so fun. She's just so fun and interesting, and I haven't even talked about the fucking music yet! The music in this saga is so good. I do think, like I said, it never reaches the same highs as the Vengeance Saga, but it also never gets as bad as the Vengeance Saga. For example, with Puppeteer, I do think the song kind of wanders a bit. The section right after the first part with Eurylochus back so soon does feel a little clunky and out of place with the rest of the song. And sometimes there will be a strange line like, gods, monsters, you know the roster. But none of those issues are enough to drag down the song for me. The instrumentation with the strings is beautiful, and I love the way that Eurylochus and Cersei's parts blend with each other and play off each other, with Eurylochus being the person telling the story of what happened to him and the crew, and Cersei having this magical, mystical sound to her. You immediately get this strong impression of her through this song, and you can tell that she left such an impact on Eurylochus that he can still hear her voice whispering in his ear. You know, I can hear her still. So, you know what? Good job, Eurylochus! You did it! You passed the challenge! You made good music! And Talea Sindel's performance really carries the rest of the songs in this saga as well. She has such a strong, commanding performance in Done For. It's another one where the two parts work together to elevate each other, but in a different way than Puppeteer. In that song, the parts were constantly going back and forth. Cersei's voice always one step behind Eurylochus, to the point where she even almost overlaps him.
I can hear her still, and her voice deceives. What if she can't be killed? Will you choose to leave? I don't know.
Again, this just shows the impression she's made on him and the control she has over the situation. Whereas in Done For, each singer gets to have their own section of the song, each making their own stand in the situation.
You must be a liar, mortals can't acquire money without dire consequence.
Then I must be a god like you, cause I got this root from the ground with my bare hands.
Hermes gave it to you, didn't he?
Okay, fine, yes. Well, regardless.
By the end, her and Odie are even singing the same part, something she never does with Eurylochus, which goes to show that now that he's eaten the flower, they're on equal footing. This is a fight between her and Odie, but it's one of wits and words where, despite Cersei's power, we are uncertain of the outcome, and it makes it so fun to watch. And although There Are Other Ways isn't my favorite, it's still a very good song that just goes to show more of what Cersei is like and how she thinks. I understand why this character was interesting enough to have an entire book written about her, a book I have also not read, because she's just such an interesting character. However, even though she is interesting, there is one character I find to be even more enjoyable to listen to. One who is my favorite character, with my favorite music. One whose music is so good, it becomes the standout song for both the Vengeance Saga and this saga. One who I haven't talked about just yet, and you probably can already tell who it is. Hermes! Can we all just agree that Hermes has the best music in the entire show? Both Dangerous and Wouldn't You Like are some of the boppiest pieces of music I've ever heard, period. They are both amazing, and it's crazy that Hermes only appears for 2 songs, yet makes such an impact in the show. Hermes' character is so clear and so good, and his performance is perfect. The style of music works with him perfectly. The music is so catchy and good. The music is such a good style. It's so catchy, and I love them both so much. Jorge recently came online and said that Hermes' sound was based off him staring at some colorful lights, and you know what? You can hear it. I get it. I don't really have specifics on either song, I just really like them both. They're both good. Troy does a good job. Yeah, that's it. Although I do think, similar to their respective sagas, while they are pretty close in quality, and it's hard for me to choose a favorite among these two because they're both so good, I do think Wouldn't You Like beats out Dangerous ever so slightly. It is ever so slightly my preferred track, and also probably my favorite track. I just think, even if there are still problems, the Cersei Saga does everything right, and is everything I want this kind of musical to be, which is why it gets to be in this spot, which means we only have one space left. And if you're doing the math, you can probably figure out who's at the top. That's right. It's all of the cut songs! They're so good! He really should have included all of them in the musical! No, I'm kidding.
Hermes, could you toss me one of those chocolates? Why, of course, darling. Think fast. Did you throw it?
Remember how several minutes ago I said that Just a Man was when I knew this was going to be something special? That's still true. However, what really made me fall in love with this show was the Underworld Saga. This is when it all paid off for me. The Underworld Saga to me is like perfect. It has arguably the least action in the entire show. I mean, all they do is go through the underworld. There's not a lot of plot here, but it makes up for that in character. This is the biggest character moment of the show, as well as the most interesting part of Odie's arc. Everything up until this point shows us why he needs to change, and everything after this point shows us the consequences of said change. But this, here, is where the change itself happens. It is the strongest thematically and the strongest character-wise, and that makes it infinitely more interesting to me than jetpacks or fights or anything else that this musical has to offer. And then there's the music itself, which, you know how I've been picking one song to be like the standout for that saga, the one I consider to be the best? Well, I couldn't pick! I tried, I really did, but all of them are so good. Underworld gives me chills every single time I listen to it. Not only is it a beautiful piece of music, but Odie is forced to confront his worst actions and everything he's had to do, which creates such a genuinely upsetting experience. I've cried multiple times with this song, and Monster just spells out every theme for you. Odie's anger and frustration really truly come across. You don't want him to become the monster, but you totally get why he feels he has to. And then there's No Longer You, which, God, do I even need to say anything? It's amazing. It's perfect. His voice is beautiful. The lyrics, beautiful. The tune, amazing. The feelings I get, so many. I know I haven't really said that much about this saga, but it's like, I don't know what else to say. Like, yeah, I could probably come up with some minor nitpicks like, the middle section of Underworld kind of wanders a bit, or... No, that's it. That's my only complaint. I genuinely have no other notes. It's perfect! It's amazing! It's amazing! Go hear it for yourself. If you haven't listened to Epic the Musical, why are you here? Go listen to Epic the Musical. But if you have to only listen to one specific part of Epic the Musical, I don't know why that would be, but make it be the Underworld Saga. Despite it being the shortest saga in the show at only 3 songs, every song makes an impact. Every song makes you feel. Every song has something to say. Every song is beautiful. It truly makes as a perfect act break to an incredible show. I know that perhaps I have said a lot of complaints throughout this video. I had a lot more complaints than I thought going in, but then again, I had a lot more to say in general. We're on page 16 at this point, so I better wrap this up. But I really do love this musical. The characters are so well written. It's a story that's become so timeless and affects so much of our modern day storytelling. The music is beautiful and amazing, and I love this show. And if anybody who has worked on this show is watching this and has watched this far, I doubt it, but still, I just want to thank you. I want to thank every artist, singer, writer, and especially Jorge himself. You did it. You made this, and you did it because you loved this project and had such a passion for it. You put your hard work and your soul into this project, and trust me, it shows. For all of my complaints, this is a musical with heart. There are some big budget shows that are missing that. I can't wait to see where this show goes in the future. Whether it be a big stage production, a film, or whatever. I just hope to be there to see it.
I must say, what a brilliant speech you gave.
Who goes there?
Just a friend who could help you save your men. A foe like Cersei's not to be messed with. You want to beat her, you'll need the blessing of a certain god. Divine intervention, someone who's not afraid to send a message.
Hermes?
Wouldn't you like a taste of the power? Wouldn't you like to use more than words? Deep in the night, the fight lasts for hours. You can be hurt or you can beat her. Wouldn't you like to have some other magic? Wouldn't you like your outcome preferred? Deep in the night, the fight can be tragic. I'll help you.